discussions to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Councillor Thornton, could I ask you to read the acknowledgement of country, please?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can all take your seats. Without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. That brings us to item 1, which is the official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 7th of February 2023 open at 6:31 p.m. Item 2, attendance and apologies. I don't have any. 3, approved leave of absence. I have nil. Item 4, disclosures of interest. Disclosures from the Community and Resource Committee meeting can be found in the agenda of tonight's meeting and are also displayed on the screen behind me. Councillors, are there any declarations for this evening? Councillor Sandri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 14.2, the Artists in Residence Inglewood, as I've been liaising with the Inglewood on Beaufort team, and I think that's impartial, and Councillor Lagan is probably the same.
Thank you. If you can both just fill out the paperwork for that. Any other councillors? No indication. I'll go on to petitions. Item 5, petitions. 5.1, Councillor Kristovich, could you like to table the petition you have on the objection to the spot rezoning?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've got a petition with 23 verified signatures, and it reads, "We, the undersigned, as residents in proximity to 8 Saunders Street, hereby sign that we disagree with the proposed rezoning of the said property from residential to local centre."
Thank you, Councillor. Item 5.2, Councillor Farrelly, would you like to table your petition on K Street, Scarborough?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city has received a petition with a total of 233 verified signatures, 211 signing the online petition and 22 signatures on a hard copy version. We, the undersigned, respectfully request that the council cease closure works and reopen the neighbourhood's access track to the main beach path located opposite the rear boundary of 301 West Coast Highway, Scarborough, referred to as K Street Access Track. This track flows directly from the pedestrian walk cycle path and is in line with the K Street beach funnel. Closing this access track adversely affects the local residents and the public, including cyclists. Redirecting pedestrians to the next northern path creates unnecessary collision risk between beach-going pedestrians and cyclist scooter riders. The location of the K Street access track is safer and preferable over the alternative north location because cyclist speed at the K Street track is greatly reduced due to the traffic calming bollards to the south and the footpath grades upwards from the north heading south, naturally slowing down cyclists from both directions. This entry track has been in place pre-1985 and is part of the neighbourhood and Scarborough's local history. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any unverified petitions you'd like to present this evening? No indication. Can I have a move and a seconder to accept those petitions then? Move Councillor Migdal, seconded Councillor Lagan. Just a show of hands, councillors, to accept those petitions. That is unanimous. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I have a leave of absence request.
Sure. Yep.
Can I do that now?
Well, kind of, you know.
Seeing I'm behind the, not behind the 8 ball on that. I can hand it in.
Item 3. The applications are at number 8. I'll just read out the ones we've got. Item 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice, and those responses from the last council meeting were published in the minutes of that meeting. That brings us to item 7, which is public question time. I'll call you forward to ask your questions. We have several people, and I'll start with you, Anthony Valinovich, if you'd like to come forward. And when you get up to the lectern, if you just press the bottom right-hand corner of that microphone, it will turn on. And I'll just ask you to start, just your name and suburb is all we need, and then you're welcome to ask your questions.
It's Anthony Valinovich from Scarborough, and it's re the council to closure of the Brighton entry track in line with K Street. And I guess it's addressing to the Director of Infrastructure or within that department First question is, who originally made the decision to close the track, i.e. what was their position and department?
Thank you. Mr Murphy?
Yeah, thank you for the question, through you, Mr Mayor. It wouldn't be normal for us to name a specific officer.
Not the officer, just their position and department.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I need to check exactly who made the decision, but it was an officer within the infrastructure department who made that decision.
Your next question?
Yep. And what advice or reason and considerations, and from whom, was used to make that decision by the officer in infrastructure?
Thank you. Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. The officer in question made a professional operational decision based on their knowledge of the location and some experience of what they'd observed.
And your next question?
Yep. Pre-closure, do council officers design and cost repairs changes to fix reported issues with the track entry? If so, what was the cost and who costed it?
Thank you. Mr Murphy?
Again, through you, Mr Mayor. They did, and the estimated cost was a minimum of 20,000, rising to potentially 30,000 to fix the issues that they observed at that location.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dean Clements? Same with you, sir, just your name and suburb. Oh, sorry, you've just turned it off, so yep, that's it.
Sorry, Dean Clements from Scarborough. Obviously, next question from the K Street closure. The years of travel time on the path has now been increased by this closure. Does the council have verified current statistics on how many people, bikes, families this affects?
Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the question. The simple answer is no, but the statistic we do have is that the other path is, we've measured it 70 metres away from the path that was closed.
Thank you.
And next question, given that beachgoers carry surfboards, towels, umbrellas, kids in towels, etc., and they're often in large groups of people, what path use safety analysis regarding the closing and the effect of the track closure, considering the hill and the users, has been undertaken?
Thank you. Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. So the city, one of the city's engineers who deals with traffic attended the site, and the issue about closing the track was discussed. In terms of, so we're talking about two paths that are 70 metres apart and closing one, the one near the top of the hill on a steep incline. The feeling was that, based on that advice, that there were no issues with safety with the second path, leaving that one open, and the sightlines were good. And on that basis, the judgment was made that the inconvenience caused by the first path was essentially worth it to deal with the safety risk that had been identified.
Thank you. And have you got another question?
No, that's it, thank you.
David Paz? Name and suburb to start, thanks.
Yep, good afternoon all. My name is David Paz and I'm from Scarborough as well, discussing the beach access track closure. My first question to council is, why wasn't this historical beach track closure put out for public consultation?
Mr Murphy?
To you, Mr Mayor. I mean, retrospectively, I think we would admit now that consultation should have taken place. I think the feeling at the time was, because there were two paths so close together, as I said, 70 metres apart, that that public consultation wasn't required.
Thank you. Second question is, why were councillors not asked about their views on this beach track closure?
And I can ask that one. I think it was probably around the same sentiment. Officers made a decision based on the issues of safety of the actual path, not the users at the time. Councillors obviously are now very much aware of it.
Thank you. Third question is, given that we received 233 signatures within just 5 days to reopen the track, when and how will council take on board the community's concerns about the process that the closure of the track, and more importantly to us residents, reopen the track given its summer and its peak usages in this area?
In terms of your first question, I would say now council have certainly heard the concerns of the community and seen the people who've rolled up tonight. I know the officers have been liaising with the two ward councillors, and they intend to act on those things. So you'll see that later on in the meeting, I believe.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Council.
Roland Hadley, please.
Good evening, Roland Hadley, Woodlands. On behalf of the Ewan Street Community Group, whose members are very concerned about the development application for the Woodlands North precinct, the council's maximum height for this project is 8 stories. However, we note that the submission shows 2 towers, one fronting Scarborough Beach Road of 6 stories and one of 13 stories for the northeast corner. Will the developer consider reducing the 13-storey tower to 11 and making the 6-storey tower 8 stories? Has the council or the city planners and the developer ever considered this question?
Thank you. Mr Rodich.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thanks, Mr Hadley, for the question. Whether or not the developer has considered it, I don't know, and nor I believe the officers haven't had those discussions. The application is before the planners at the moment. As you're aware, advertising closes on the 13th of February. We'll take into consideration comments received, and as part of that feedback, of course, we'll be discussing I guess the main components of the development where it seeks discretion. You're correct that it does seek discretion in terms of building height, but in terms of numbers of 11 stories, those questions haven't been asked.
Well, could the planning department or whatever your department represents do that for us on our behalf?
Thank you, Mr Hadley. Your next question.
We note on plans a gap has been created in the median strip on Ewan Street East. This space is a few metres north of the childcare centre on the bend. We assume it is intended to provide access to the basement car parks for both public and residential. Our members can anticipate, nay guarantee, traffic accidents and considerable banking up of vehicles in this area. Can this median strip remain as is?
Thank you. Mr Rodich.
Thanks, Mr Hadley. As part of the assessment, of course, the traffic implications of the development on the local network will be considered. Any modifications to city's infrastructure, be the median there, will be considered as part of that process. So that is underway, and when we provide a responsible authority to the JDAP, traffic and impacts on the locality will be considered thoroughly.
Thank you. This Woodlands sandpit has been vacant for the best part of 18 years. Can the council, through the State Department for Local Government, introduce laws that stipulate development must be undertaken within 3 to 4 years in these critical areas?
I'd love to, Mr Hadley. Mr Rodich.
Quick answer, Mr Hadley, no.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Mr Mitchell. Bob Mitchell. There you are. Thank you. Name and suburb.
Robert Mitchell, Karrinyup. Good evening, Mayor, councillors, council officers, fellow ratepayers and public. I have 3 questions tonight. The first one relates to, which has been going on now for about 12 or 18 months. Just a bit of background before I ask the question. I believe there was $100,000 dished out to this to hurry it along. It's regarding the City of Stirling Performing Arts Centre. Now, I asked questions in May last year, and I was advised that there'd be a report in the calendar year last year. I'm here tonight to ask, where's the report? Yep. Has the council progressed the establishment of the City of Stirling Performing Arts Centre being entirely considered to a report stage within the last calendar year?
No, Mr Mitchell, I'll get you information from Mr Rodich on it, but just to be clear that council never committed to building a performing arts centre. The $100,000 was on the budget to investigate the Stirling City Centre and whether a performing arts centre or many other things would be needed for the future. I'll get Mr Rodich to provide an update on where it's at. Oh, Mr Quirk.
Through Mr Mayor, thank you very much for the question, Mr Mitchell. As per my last response, you are correct. The City has been preparing a community infrastructure plan for the Stirling City Centre. As the Mayor mentioned, a performing arts centre was one of the things that is to be considered in that plan amongst a broad range of higher order infrastructure. Performing Arts Centre, pool and a sports stadium were some of the things put forward by councillors through a notice of motion. That draft community infrastructure plan has been completed and we'll look to engage with council over the coming months in terms of what the next steps are. But it must be noted that the infrastructure within that plan is higher order infrastructure and is therefore very costly and not likely to be provided through local government. If I provide a comparison, the proposed Performing Arts Centre at the City of Joondalup was costed between $60 and $80 million. So this does require due consideration by council, but it will take some time for us to work through that plan before we have any decisions about what infrastructure may be provided.
Thank you.
Can
Mr
I just
Mitchell.
get back to you, Mr Mayor? Last year, when you answered, this matter has been on the table for 12 months. Is there going to be a report this financial year? The Mayor advised there will be a report provided this calendar year. That's recorded, sir.
Then I apologise, but let's be
This
very...
is just being dragged on.
I promise you it's not being dragged on, and there's certainly no hurry, Mr Mitchell, for this.
You're certainly in no hurry, yeah.
We're certainly in no hurry. I guarantee we're in no hurry.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I've got the second question now. And this regards to the motion put up by Mr. Councillor Sargent prior to his departure. And it revolves around a report on Wolga and of what benefit they are to this council. Is a report going to be made about that as well? Because when I look at the
yes, Mr Mitchell, so that came to
it,
council and council dealt with that.
Yeah. One thing surprised me was that every year we pay $129,000 to this august organisation for heaven knows what. They have a free ride to have over $2 million worth of insurance put out by Martin McClellan, and no one else gets a look in. When I asked the question of Wolga, do they get any type of competitive quotes? They had legal opinion not to supply me. And also, Mayor, in your office, when the Chief Executive Officer said to me that we don't do anything, we own Wolga. You don't own Wolga.
We are
You're
Wolga.
paying $129,000 a year to be a member.
Thank you for the question, Mr Mitchell. And look, we've answered this before. Let's be very clear. All councils in Western Australia, that is every council in Western Australia, is a member of Wolga. Wolga is an industry association in effect
this wasn't
that
in
we
relation
belong
to
to,
it.
and we pay a membership fee. The report came to council outlining the services, the important services that we get from Wolga last year. Council asked the question and we're very satisfied with the level of service they're getting for a fairly insignificant amount of money. As for the insurance, it's been said before, it is a co-op effectively where all councils engage through Wolga to get the best value for money insurance, and we are very confident. And as you'll find, there were a couple of councils who left Wolga to try to get their own insurance, and it was a significant cost to ratepayers with a much less level of cover. So we are very confident with that, and we can provide you that report in writing, Mr Mitchell. Your next question, please.
just prior to going to my next question, you don't get competitive quotes.
Yes, I
Do
do.
you? You do not.
I am comfortable that Walga do the right thing with insurance.
You're comfortable with it.
I am comfortable,
They
very
won't,
comfortable.
legally they've been
Yes,
advised
let's
not
take this
to
offline,
provide
Mr
it.
Mitchell, and ask your
Anyway,
next question.
I will continue on to my third question, third and last one. Has the council progressed the establishment of the natural shade cover of the City of Stirling entrance courtyard adjacent to the north side of this chamber? I have noticed in previous meeting minutes, that various versions of the final layout have been voted on and adjourned or delayed to future meetings. Along with these delays, the estimated budget has risen in cost from $150,000 to $240,000 as of the 13th of September last year. I have discussed this development with councillors and also mentioned in council minutes that it may be more desirable to have large pot plant form pallets designed to take large trees and place around the area in a shaded seasonal format, removed and replaced seasonally. One councillor mentioned that was being looked at. In consideration of other matters, additional to staging such as a yarning circle and provision of lighting installations, when is it envisaged this work will be, well, started? I put here completed.
Thank you. Mr Murphy.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr Mitchell, and through you, Mr Mayor. I think, Mr Mitchell, you're referring, there were two notices of motion that came from Deputy Mayor Proud. One's about shade on the forecourt, the other's about lighting. What we've done, obviously we've discussed a couple of options with council, but we've packaged it all up as one project. We're getting some external help with the design, and we're waiting for that design process to be completed. So we're hopeful the works will start this financial year or early next financial year is the answer to your specific question.
Thank you, Mr Mitchell. Leisha Jack, if you'd like to come up, please. Thank you. Just your name and suburb.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, staff. Okay, my name's Leisha Jack from Karrinyup, Stirling Urban Tree Network, convener of the Stirling Urban Tree Network. I have three questions related to the to tree removal on the Mount Lawley Golf Course and their proposed vegetation management plan. But I just wanted to mention, I don't know if any of the councillors noticed, in the age-friendly plan, old people, most people who play golf are older, over 60.
Yes.
And note the interest...
Let's keep on track, Ms Jack.
Yeah,
I would suggest you're going off track a little bit there.
No, it is actually, well, it's not, because I'm talking about golf, and this
There's
pertains
plenty
to...
of young people who play as well.
Well, more people play over the age of 50, and over 60 there's lots of
We
them.
get your point.
Okay.
Your questions.
Age-friendly plan, old people want shade. They're concerned about shade. If you search shade in the agenda, you'll see it, and also it's social. So there you go. So my first question regarding tree removal at Mount Lawley Golf Club. One, in the arboricultural survey and risk assessment for Mount Lawley Golf Club on the 7th of October 2020, which is often referred to and sourced in a lot of the reports and so on. Under methods in that assessment, in section 2 on page 10, there is a list of attributes that were collected for each tree. All of these attributes are columns on a spreadsheet, which is in a data, which is in a spreadsheet, which is the data entered in a spreadsheet, which is like an appendix. It's actually called the Arbor-Carbon Tree Survey Data, which is also often referred to.
If I can ask you to head towards a question,
Well,
please.
it's a complicated question, and councillors and no one will understand what I'm talking about if I just ask the question. But basically, the location on the version, the PDF version that has been provided to members of the club and other people, it actually has the GPS locations of the trees missing. But in the Arbor Carbon survey risk assessment lists all the things that would be on the survey spreadsheet, but that it isn't there, it's missing, okay? Now, all professional tree surveys include the location, the GPS coordinates of each tree. Without this critical information, the survey is useless, especially for sites with many trees. Also, maps with trees are often illegible that come out in the city and club reports and plans.
Again, Ms Jack, I do have to ask you to ask a question.
Adding to the confusion, I know you won't like this question, adding to the confusion, many of the trees on the course included in the survey don't have numbers on them. So without all of this critical, and some of them don't, that do have numbers on them, don't correspond with the survey, with the actual numbers that are on the survey data document. Not providing precise locations for trees means that the data can be manipulated. My question is, did the Mount Lawley Golf Club provide the city with a different version of the Arbor Carbon survey data, which does contain the GPS locations of each tree? And will you write to the Mount Lawley Golf Club and advise them to put up the true and complete version of the tree survey on their website if the one that is there has had the GPS locations removed?
I don't mind that question, Ms Jack. I think the answer is no. I don't think we have got a different version. Mr Murphy.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, and thanks for the question. My understanding is that the Mount Lawley Golf Club does have GPS coordinates, but the city doesn't.
They haven't provided them to you?
We don't, no, we don't have them.
I couldn't say for definite they haven't, but at the moment, I'm pretty sure we don't have it. When the cities assess the trees, it does rely on the ID number and the tree location map supplied by the club, which is in Appendix 4 of the Vegetation Management Plan. Now, the city's found that the Arbor Carbon tree assessment to be highly accurate, so at the moment we're comfortable with the data we have.
Oh, it's highly accurate.
It's
just got a column missing.
Thanks for the interruption. But if you want us to follow that up, we're happy to follow
Will
that
you
up.
please? I did put this
Ms
question
Jack,
in.
your next
I put this question in yesterday.
No, we commit, Ms
Okay.
Jack, we commit
Thank
to
you.
following it up with the club and
Well,
cross-checking it with the GPS
I gave
coordinates.
this question yesterday morning. Okay. It's a simple question. Simple question.
Yeah.
Did city officers send the Mount Lawley Golf Club vegetation plan to the city's Conservation and Natural Areas Department for comment from your environmental and conservation experts prior to the December 6th, 2022 agenda being published? If not, why not? And if so, will the city management provide all councillors with all of the internal communications and any recommendations made by city staff in that department or area regarding the proposed Mount Lawley Golf Club vegetation plan and their Mount Lawley Golf Club bushland report? Right?
Thank you. Mr Murphy.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. So the city's environmental conservation officers did provide technical advice on things like flora, species selection, bushland rehabilitation and wildlife habitat to the golf club in the development and the approval of the bushland management plan. So we were involved. Now the detailed plan guides the management of the bushland zones across the course, which is now led by the club's in-house land conservation officer, but we were involved in the production of the plan. So now the club's vegetation management plan summarises their bushland management plan, and if you refer to the references on page 28 and 29, that's where you need to look for that information.
But did they comment on what was going in the agenda, the actual finished vegetation plan?
Thank you, Ms Jack. So, Mr Murphy, the question is, was there comments for the report that came to council? Were there comments included in that report?
So I'm trying not to split hairs. I think the simple answer, Mr Mayor, is that we were involved in the production of the plan.
In the early days, but did they see the final plan?
We would have seen the final plan before.
You did, yes.
Yeah, the city's officers did, yes.
From the environmental, right, okay.
Thanks.
Modern shade, question 3, modern shade and sunlight modelling often shows that trees selected for removal because of suspected shading issues by golf course staff actually aren't causing shade problems at all. Sometimes golf course staff base their opinions on field studies and or on old, inaccurate methods conducted by themselves or by so-called experts. Modern shade and sunlight modelling are done by experts using remote sensing and high-resolution multispectral imaging with special sunlight shade modelling software methods on golf courses to determine if trees are causing problems with shade. The Mount Lawley Golf Course often uses shade issues as a reason for the need to remove, for tree removal on the golf course. They mention it, for example, on page 17 of their 2021 annual report. But neither the 2020 arboricultural risk assessment nor the arbor-carbon tree survey data mention shade at all, or shade issues, sunlight issues at all. So what method of sunlight or shade modelling was conducted by the Mount Lawley Golf Club in determining that some trees had to be removed or will need to be removed because of shade issues on turf or around the course? When was it done, and which company or organisation did the modelling?
Thank you. Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. So in terms of background, there can be issues with remote shade modelling, such as estimating the height or shape of trees that cast the resultant shade. And tree shade is not the only factor with turf. Things like the slope, the aspect, wind movement, etc. It can also have an influence on turf health. You're correct in saying that the ground staff, at the club work on the course most days throughout the year, and they would have inputted their in situ practical understanding of where the shade affects turf management. Having said all of that, the city's tree panel has independently assessed the club's requested tree removals and provided advice as to whether specific tree removals can be supported. So irrespective of all that, the city has it oversight and given that advice to council.
That's not what I asked.
Thank you, Ms Jack.
That is irrelevant. That's not what I asked. I asked what modelling techniques were used.
Ms Jack, we'll respond to you in writing.
Okay.
We'll re-listen to your questions and respond in detail, but I think...
Yeah, please do. That would be great. Thank you. Okay.
Ryan Johnson? Thanks. And if you just have to turn that microphone back on for me, just on the bottom right hand, and lift it up. Yep, and there's a button on the bottom right hand corner, the silver one. That's it. And just your name and suburb to start, and then you're welcome to ask a question.
Ryan Johnson from Scarborough. My question's already asked. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yep, no problem at all. That was a really big build-up. Alan McLaren, please.
Alan McLaren from Scarborough. Being a resident that walks the shared use pathway down to Scarborough Beach quite often at the Brighton end, I just want councillors to understand there are two pathway entries that are very close to each other. One is very close to a set of bollards which slow bicycles down at the top of the hill and is in clear view of each other. The other is further away. As bikes come down the hill, they go through the bollards and accelerate considerably. By the time they get to the bottom of the hill, they are going extremely fast. Equally on the way up the hill, they are going equally fast to try and get up.
Mr McLaren, I do have to ask you, this is public question time, so you do need to ask a question.
I'm asking the question, what consideration was given to the difference in speeds that bikes pass the two entry points, and what consideration was given to the risk involved in opening the bottom path in preference to the top path?
Thank you for that. Mr Murphy?
Yes, through Mr Mayor, and thanks for the question. I think I might have mentioned earlier, the representatives from the Parks Department did take a traffic engineer down to look at exactly that issue that you talked about, and the advice received was that it was a safe location for a path based on the sight lines and the clarity of view of oncoming cyclists for both the cyclist and the pedestrian.
Thank you. I have no other public questions listed here. We have received some in writing and confirmation those people aren't here. So those questions will actually form part of the minutes of this meeting, and the answers will also form part of those minutes to be read. I will now move on to item 8, which is applications for leave of absence. Councillor Lagan, this is your moment.
Yes, sorry, my apologies for that. I was in a totally different space. Can I please apply for a leave of absence from 22nd, 29th to the 29th of March, please?
Thank you. And Councillor Kristovich has requested a leave of absence for the 1st of September through to the 17th of October. Are there any other requests for leave of absence?
There is, Mr Mayor. I've just put it through about 10 minutes ago. From 9th of July to 11th of August. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Is there anyone else? If not, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept those leave of absence? Move Councillor Lagan, seconded Councillor Hatton, and just a show of hands, if we can, to keep it moving. It's confirmed unanimous. Thank you. I'll go to item 9, which is confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council way back on the 6th of December 2022? Move Councillor Kristovich, seconded Councillor Perkoff. And again, can I ask for a show of hands to accept those minutes? Thank you. And against? So that is carried with Councillor Ree voting against. Item 10, announcements by the presiding member. I have nil. Item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil. Item 12, reports and recommendations of committee. We will now move on to. Any alt-recs provided to governance prior to midday have been included in the running sheet. Also note that 12.1 CS1 and 12.1 F2 are required to be pulled out as there was no committee recommendation to come to us. Are there any other items you wish to be pulled out today? Councillor Sandri, are you indicating?
No, just to note that there was an email circulated to councillors who may not have seen, but our running sheet in front of us has a slight error under item 14. It doesn't reflect our contents.
Okay. Thank you. So can I just ask Councillor Ree?
Yes, please. May I have 12.1 F1, please?
Yep, Councillor Lagan.
Yes, can I have item 12.1 TE1?
Thank you. Is it Councillor Migdale?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I have 13.1, please?
We're not there yet. So let's just do. Is anyone pulling ES1 out? There isn't. Councillor Lagan.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. 12.1 ES1.
Which is pretty well every item. So there we go. We're ready to go. Should be fairly painless. Let's start as 12.1 ES1, noting there is a memo with an alt-rec. Councillor Hatton as chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The first committee meeting for the year was robust. There wasn't a lot on the agenda, but it was very robust in that councillors were showing that they really are thinking about their communities. This particular item, ES1, is about the intersection of Central Avenue and Clifton Crescent.
Just a motion, thanks, Councillor.
Yep, and no, I need to say that there's the debate, it was carried unanimously, but the debate was very good.
I need a motion.
The alternative motion is an alternative motion with 3 parts, and I'd like to move that the motion be accepted.
Thank you. And is there a seconder for that alternative recommendation? Councillor Lagan. And is everyone okay with that? Everyone's seen it as an alt-rec? Good. Is there anyone opposed to that motion? Just turn your mics off, councillors. If there's no one opposed to that alt-rec, then I will put that to the vote. Thank you, and that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I'll now go to item 12.1 CS1. This is the age-friendly plan that was lost at committee. Councillor Hatton as chair of that committee.
Thanks again.
Without the long dialogue.
Without the long dialogue. Thanks again, Mr Mayor. Yes, it wasn't carried. I had the casting vote as chair. I was a bit concerned about a few aspects. We've had a white paper since then. It's been clarified, and I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, councillor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Migdale. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Ree. Councillor Ree is opposed, so I'll go to you, Councillor Hatton, mover of the motion. Now's your chance. Go for it.
Yeah, look, the original age-friendly model and policy was set up in 2017. It's now 2023. We have obligations to the 8 domains of the World Health Organisation. We certainly have things in place over the last number of years. This moves forward for the next decade virtually. We did get and I was concerned because I felt that there was not enough detail. We have had detail forwarded and in the white paper, and now I'm fully convinced that we're doing the right thing. So I do move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mcdale, you seconded.
Nothing further. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Ree, you're opposed.
Yes, thank you. I'm just a bit concerned by some of the comments that have been made, and I do agree that it was an interesting dialogue at committee, and the comments made by the chair. Can I ask first with regard to what seniors clubs were actually contacted, please?
Thank you. Mr Quirk.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I can confirm that every seniors club and every autumn club that uses any city facility was directly engaged by our community services team.
Thank you. Councillor Ree.
So that, how many senior clubs do we actually have, please?
7.
Yeah, it's around about that. I'll need to take that on notice, but it's around about 6 or 7.
Therefore, we're considering the autumn clubs, the seniors clubs, the retirees, etc. So I would thought there would be more than 7. So therefore, collectively, that would be 70, 80 or even more people, which I find interesting.
No, Councillor Ree, let's be very clear. I think the information, and even in the memo that officers provided to council, showed there was very significant engagement with the consultation process. I think it was in the order of 800 people responded. There was plenty of people even under the age of 60 who weren't included as seniors, but were perhaps people who had ageing relatives or the carers who look after them. The engagement was online and in person and included shopping centres, community events, as well as all those clubs. So there was very significant engagement and consultation.
Thanks. Of the 709 people, most of the people surveyed that answered it were under 55.
I don't think that is correct. I think it was the figures were around 40% were under that age.
On page 2, it says 709 people were completed. A survey total 362 were under 55. I believe maths would be saying that that would be more than half.
No.
I'm reading straight from the report that was provided.
Mr Quirk?
So my comment is that...
I'll just get Mr Quirk to provide.
Well, I'm reading straight off the information.
Yeah, I can confirm that that information is correct. Obviously, we were engaging with people in our seniors clubs who don't need to be 55. We're also engaging with people at shopping centres, some of which I fully expect were carers. So it's not entirely surprising that some of the respondents were under 55. And importantly, this is a plan that needs to be in place for an extended period. So those who may be in their 50s now by 2027 obviously may very much be in their 60s.
Thank you. Councillor Ree.
Thank you for reinforcing what you wrote. The comment I'm making is that the under 55s have a different view from the people that are, say, over 55s. And some of the comments made at committee by councillors and by general members of the public is that they felt that, you know, they weren't on the internet. Some of the issues that were raised were good, that they felt that they needed to be addressed and to be part of it. So a lot of them feel that there wasn't enough to engage them and going forward. I hope that this age-friendly plan can come back to council in a year or two and we progress how it's progressing. We see how it's progressing because it's a long time to actually go to 2027 when we consider that our actual demographics is becoming older, that this shouldn't be reviewed. So that would be my next question, if I may, because yes, we need the plan, and yes, I totally agree that our mature residents should be respected. After all, they've been paying rates for a lot longer than most of us. But I think going forward, because of changes in technologies and changes in public transport, changes just technology everywhere, that our plan needs to be reviewed more on a basis than every 5 or 6 years. So I would like to hope, and this is my question, whether or not this would come back into council in a yearly basis to tell us, how is this tracking? Is it reality? And hopefully the demographics are more pointed at people who actually are going to use these services without being ageist.
Thank you, councillor, and certainly that's something that does happen even now. So the community strategic plan, which is a head document, is consulted constantly with the community. This is just one of the many, many operational plans that are within the city. It comes to council for endorsement, and the actions within it are constantly reported back to council. So I've got no hesitation in saying that will be reported back by staff. And if you've got any specific questions, they can be answered along the way.
My point is, my question was, will this age-friendly plan come back to council in its little block, not under community or buried in any report, before 2027?
Yes.
That's my comment.
Yes. Yes. It's a current procedure of council. Let's be very clear. Plans and all those corporate documents are reviewed by council on a regular basis, quite often yearly. Is there anything else, Councillor Reid? Councillor Lagan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of questions. Look, I'm happy enough with the documentation and the review, and there was some response to questions from committee. But specifically through you to officers, my first question is, via the planning mechanics of the State Government of Western Australia, what percentage of new build in the city will be aged care affordable housing, and what percentage may be funded or part funded via federal or state agencies?
Thank you. Is that for you, Mr Quirk, or Mr Rodich? Yeah. Mr Murphy's very clear it's not for him. Well, we might have to take that on notice. Is that all right, Councillor Lagan?
Yep. Second question.
Do you know the answer? Because sometimes when you do this, you already know the answer.
It's probably a good research paper for someone. My second question is, with regard to the percentage of affordable housing that will be required by state government mechanics or by the council planning, how much of that new build will be in line with the recommendations of the Aged Care Royal Commission?
Ditto. I think we'll have to respond to you in writing.
Okay, and my third question is, what specific number of Aged Care Royal Commission recommendations are specifically targeted within our document? So was it recommendation 1, 5, 4?
Thank you. And can you supply those questions in writing so they do have the full?
Yep, can do.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to indicate on this item? If not, I'll go to Councillor Hatton if you'd like to close debate.
Yeah, no further on that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So that closes debate on item 12.1 CS1. I'll put that to the vote, councillors. Thank you. That is unanimous. Just with your indulgence, councillor, I just want to make an announcement. I'm just aware there's many people from Scarborough still in the gallery. Just as a fact of meeting procedure, you're welcome to stay, but there is no item on the agenda this evening for that petition. The petition has been tabled at council. It is up to councillors if they wish to move a motion perhaps at the end of the evening, but there is no item or room on the agenda for that to happen until the very end of the meeting. So there's a significant amount of items we get through till then. So we're not ignoring you, but I just wanted to let you know there's no agenda item. Yeah. So you are welcome to leave, and obviously councillors will notify if anything has happened. Yes. Sorry, as Councillor Sandry just mentioned, it is live streamed, so you're welcome to go home and keep it on the side, and you will see very entertaining viewing, but you're welcome to tune in later if you'd like to watch the end of the meeting. Thank you. Thanks. I got what you were saying. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. I could see these eager faces waiting for something, and I'm thinking it's not going to come. Yeah. Thank you for that, everyone. Let's move back onto the agenda. So I'll go to item 12.1 F1. Councillor Reid has pulled this item out. Councillor Hatton is chair of the committee.
Yes, it was carried on committee, and I'd like to move that the committee recommendation.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Ferrante. Councillor Reid, have you just got a question, or are you opposed?
No, 2 questions, please.
Okay, if they're just questions, I'll allow them.
On page 52 of the agenda, it actually states in there that showing the spending of agencies, which is good, and I thank Ms Hawkins for that. I'm just wondering what, we have spoken before about parks and sustainability, the increase in costs for that. I'd like a comment on that, please, as to, I thought that was being addressed and it was going down, but it doesn't seem to be. And my other comment was with governance.
Councillor, I'm happy for that to be taken offline. That's a budget question. It's not a schedule of accounts question.
It's a, well, I've just assumed that they would be able to say why it was such an increase, that's all.
Yeah, I think we'll have to take that on notice, councillor.
Okay. Page 106 of the documentation, tyre cycling, contaminated and tyre recycling. Do we have contaminated sites? Do we have contaminated, what?
The tyres?
Contaminated and tyre recycling, two different issues. It's actually costing $1,650.
Yeah, so there's a
this
charge
month.
to the city. So if you're a resident of the City of Stirling, you can go over the weighbridge and you can take a wheel and you can pay your $20 and they will collect them in a cage and the city will pay to have them dumped as contaminated waste.
Two different things. What's the contaminated then?
The contaminated would be similar things that are mixed substances like petrols and paints, I'm guessing, and I can certainly get Mr Bryant to provide a more detailed response in writing. But it is a service that, you know, if a resident has something, they choose to come over the weighbridge and do that. There's a cost to the city to get that disposed of correctly. I know it's a fantastic service. I appreciate the work they do because they've taken a couple of tyres that were at my house. Thank you for highlighting that, Councillor Ree. If there's no one opposed, I will put that agenda item to the vote. Councillors, are we all voting? Schedule of accounts. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 12.1 F2, monthly statement of accounts. This was referred to council as there were a few discrepancies just with the figures, the way they were transcribed. So that's now been corrected. There was no issue with the agenda item itself. Councillor Hatton, as chair of the committee.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the committee recommendation. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that, please, councillor? Councillor Perkoff. Is there anyone opposed? No, I'll put that item to the vote, please, councillors. Councillors up the end, just voting. Thank you. That is unanimous as well. And we'll now go to item 12.1 T1, the Integrated Waste Management System. Councillor Lagan has pulled that one out. It could be confidential depending if the questions are related to the tender. We'll find out. Councillor Hatton, as chair of the committee.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the committee recommendation, please.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Farrelly, is there anyone opposed? Yep. Question, or you haven't got an alternative rec or anything like that, just question? Okay. Councillor Lagan?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, just following committee and some of the response from officers at committee, I note that the Waste Authority webpage lists Better Bins plus Go Fogo, and a portion of this tender related to a company that lists on its website Fogo as one of its key data management areas. The Waste Authority has listed $20 million for the Better Bins Plus program. At the committee meeting, officers indicated that that money may or may not assist the city in costs related to Fogo. Can officers just remind me again of their response? I think I asked, would the city be required to buy any more vehicles for the collection of Fogo?
Thank you. Mr Bryant?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's a bit of a multi-part question. So Fogo is a separate item to the item on the table tonight, would be the first point. Should council decide in the future to implement a Fogo system, the city will require to roll out an additional 30,000 or thereabouts bins to support that collection regime, and the collection of 30,000 additional bins will require additional trucks, whether that is purchased directly by the city or contracted, or for purchase by a contractor to service the additional requirements. To the question around the better bins plus funding, a little bit of additional homework since committee would seem to indicate that should we move towards implementing FOGO, the better bins plus funding could contribute in the vicinity of about $1 million for the city.
Thank you. Does that help you, Councillor
It does. Just as a follow-up question, Mr Mayor. So does the...
Can I just ask though, this is about approving a tender tonight,
Yeah.
so can we just make sure it's, it's
it is
related to
definitely
this?
because
Good.
the approval, in my opinion, of the tender has lead-on costs.
Sure.
Or possible lead-on costs. So just follow up to that. Are officers aware, beyond the $20 million, will the Waste Authority or state government be providing any more funding, or will it be through the applications process that's listed on their webpage?
Mr Bryant?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If that question is in relation to implementing a FOGO system, that's through the Better Bins Plus funding opportunity, which is evolving through multiple funding rounds through the Waste Authority.
Thank you.
And just finally, this is a kind of a thought, no, it's not a thought bubble, but it's a question I need to ask. Could we do this process and remove the camera element?
Thank you. Mr Bryant?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That would be not in line with the intent of the procurement process that we've been involved in, so that would change the specification somewhat. It would make some of the benefits that I would expect from the system redundant, so we wouldn't maximise the use of that system, but essentially you could, but it's a bit of a half approach, if that makes sense, to establishing this type of system.
Thank you. I've had some other indications. I am inclined to go to debate if it's... No. It was heading that way. That's why I'm thinking... Is anyone else indicator, or are we happy? Okay, in that case, I'll allow the question. We'll keep going down this path.
Sorry, thank you. So as council, when we endorse a tender to go out, and it's obviously got parameters in it, is council allowed to, once we get the tender back, to modify the scope because we reconsidered the appropriateness of an element of that tender?
Are we... I think Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With regards to that, I think it would depend on the change of scope. So the council could approve the tender and we could go back in terms of negotiation. But it would very much depend on what the change was, Councillor Sandry, to what the original intent of the tender was. So there's certainly elements we could deal with through negotiation. But if we're straying far from that original scope and that tender, then that wouldn't be possible.
Would an element like removing the camera component or even the notification around the camera component?
So I understand where you're heading with this, and obviously both of you have sort of indicated the camera, and I know that came up at committee. Perhaps if I get comment from Mr Murphy just around that and the reasoning for that, because I think in this context it probably would alter it, and if that was the case, I think, yeah, let's have a listen to this first, because otherwise we're better off opening debate and perhaps deferring an item rather than making a snap decision to change a tender tonight. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just want to add one thing about the camera. I think we're talking about the camera on the hopper. So the driver lifts the bin and there's a camera on the hopper, and so the driver can see what's in the bin. And those cameras already exist on our existing trucks, and they're there for safety reasons. So the driver has to be able to see, so for example, if there was a gas bottle in the bin and that was lifted in the bin and thrown in the back of the truck, he or she would need to know that. So I think I understand the line of question and the concern about, I suppose, snooping on residents, but the primary reason for that camera is safety. And so it would be hard for me as director to say that we could lose the camera on the system, and we already have cameras on the existing systems. So if that helps the debate or the discussion.
Yeah,
Councillor Sandry?
Understood. Cameras from last discussion was that they're not real time, which is being altered. So therefore, to clarify, the people who are collecting the waste have the ability to put notices on people's bins. That's the intent?
I think it's more safety than notices on bins, but Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, I said they've got the cameras there in real time, so they can see what's going in the hopper, and that's for safety reasons. And they can currently, we do sticker bins and say it's contaminated, or, we've already collected the bin, but, give advice, etc. So, that can already be done and sometimes is done. But we're very, very light touch, that we even followed the bin tagging program, advising people that were doing well, that we weren't doing so well in terms of recycling. So we're not, we're not in the business of aggressively enforcing things like recycling on people, if that
Last
helps.
question, is it possible, I'll endorse the tender, if it's possible that a policy, it doesn't have to be council endorsed policy, but maybe a working policy or whatever it is, internal policy around how we go about that, notices and what we're actually looking for. Is that possible?
I think the intent of this is certainly that the officers have heard council through committee process as well on a couple of occasions, and I think they're happy to do that. It does sound a bit like you're worried they're going to see what's in your bin, Councillor Sandri. There's
I will just note, I think the director will be in the paper tomorrow for snooping.
Yes, I was impressed with.
Yeah.
And we're not going to give him a chance to retract that word. So that isn't. There is no debate on that item. There are some good questions there. There is a move and a seconded for item 12.1 T1, so I'll put that to the vote, councillors. Thank you, and that is unanimous, councillors. Thank you for that. Councillor Hatton, you don't get to move the balance of reports because we did every single one of them. So members of the gallery or those people viewing at home, please note that all of those items from committee have now been dealt with and voted on. We'll now move to the direct to council items, starting with item 13.1. 13.1, the West Australian Local Government Association North Metropolitan Zone Committee. Councillors, is there a motion? Councillor Migdale.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I believe governance has two alt-recs. I'll move, please, the alt-rec for a spill.
Thank you. So the councillor has moved an alt-rec noting that I have resigned from the Walga North Met Zone Committee and State Council, and that in accordance with clause 14 for AG of the Walga Constitution, council resolves to terminate all remaining appointments as delegates of the West Australian and start again. So the following members be appointed as delegates or deputies to the West Australian Local Government Association, North Metropolitan Zone. Thank you for that. So so let me just check with governance. I believe we'd need a seconder to, we'd have to do this in two parts, I'm guessing, because the first part is to do item 1 and 2, and if that is passed, then to go to 5 or 3, or numbers are changing on me. Would that be correct?
Just a question, Mr Mayor. Does the wording involving State Council have to be included?
I don't believe... with which part?
That's what I'm asking for clarification on.
That I have resigned from?
Yes. So we're not just talking representation to North Zone?
Yeah. I think we can actually leave North... We can almost... Yeah, we can either put both in or take them off. Yes, that's fine. Okay, so we're happy we can do this as...
have to rescind the previous motion of where people were appointed beforehand?
No, because that's what item 2 is doing. So I think we can deal with this in one motion, so we can... Because if it's lost, it's lost, or if it's carried, it's carried. So that means the easiest way for us to progress this, councillors, would be to have the delegate nominations of the names and then take them to a vote so we can move and second those nominations.
Mr Mayor, as a delegate, excuse me, may I just, this is new to me, so you excuse me, but I'm also a delegate to the North Metropolitan Zone Committee. I actually find this is sort of a bit like being railroaded through without consultation.
Councillor, please take a seat and let me explain.
No, but can you do that?
Don't no me. Councillor, you can't say something is being railroaded through at council. It is not being railroaded through. A councillor has moved a motion. That's all that's happened right now. Let's be very clear. It's entirely within the rules and meeting procedures. It doesn't even have a seconder yet. We're still working out how to progress this. You may be a North Zone delegate. It has no relevance
No,
right now.
I really want to know does that comply with the rules? That does comply with the rules?
It certainly does. But we haven't even got to that stage yet. A councillor can put any motion they want forward. Just want to take a second to check with governance.
Mr Mayor, can we have a break?
You
I think
can
we
have a
need to vote for number 2 before we can vote for
So,
number 3.
councillors, why don't we just take, and those viewers at home, we're just dealing with something here. Councillors, can I just ask we just take a 5-minute break and let me just liaise with governance just on the appropriate way to progress this so we do it right. Thank you. back on live stream. So live stream has now recommenced. Thank you for your patience, everyone. We're now back in council. We've confirmed that what we will do, there is a motion by Councillor Migdale. We will split this motion, and first of all, just to make sure the intent of council is clear, we will do item 1 and 2. We'll vote on those first. So what we're doing here is noting that I have resigned from Walga, which means both the Metropolitan North Zone and also the State Council, effective from the end of last year. And that in accordance with the Walga Constitution, Council resolves to terminate all remaining appointments, so effectively a spill of the positions, as delegates to the West Australian Local Government Association and the North Metropolitan Zone. So I will ask if there is a seconder for this motion. Thank you, Councillor Lagan. And I will put that to a vote. 1 and 2 together. 1 and 2 together. There's no point in separating those two. Thank you. And that motion is carried 13-2 with Councillors Corrado, Dudek, Ferrante, Hatton, Kristovich, Lagan, Migdale, Olo, Perkoff, Proud, Sandri, Thornton and myself for, and against Councillors Farrelly and Ree. What we'll now do is I will ask for nominations for the positions of delegates to North Zone. These are, just for those who may not be entirely aware, obviously it was in the report, but North Metropolitan Zone is a representative committee. So we're electing 4 councillors to represent the City of Stirling and to represent this council's interest on a North Metropolitan Zone with 4 councillors from Joondalup and 4 councillors from Wanneroo. So it's quite a unique zone compared to other probably groups that have 12 councils from different councillors or different zones. From there, one of those representatives from each council generally is then elected by North Zone to sit on State Council. The role of North Zone is to not only represent the interests of us as a local government, but it's also to report back and ensure there's open communication between councillors and what is happening and officers. So to do this, I will ask if you raise your hand and let me know if you'd like to be a delegate for, first of all, on North Zone, and or if you would like to be a deputy on North Zone, and then we'll deal with how we are going to vote for this. So I will just, let's see who we've got first. So I'll go Councillor Proud or Deputy Mayor. Yes. So the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Kristovich. Thanks. Also noting that if you are on Tamala, it's untenable because of the conflicts. Councillor Farrelly. Would you like to be? Would you like to remain on North Zone?
I don't like this process.
It's irrelevant right now.
Yes, all right.
Thank you. Good. Councillor Dudek. Thank you. Councillor Criado. As a deputy?
Yes, please.
Okay, so as a deputy Criado. Councillor Thornton.
I'll pass.
Thank you. Councillor Olo.
I'll pass,
Thank you. Councillor Migdale. Thank you. Yep, you are too. Councillor Ferrante.
Doesn't conflict with the Mandari at all?
No.
No. Okay, I'll put my name down.
As a delegate or a deputy?
Delegate, please. I've never done it before.
Thank you. Councillor Sandri? No. Councillor Lagan?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Councillor Perkov? Leon Tamala? Councillor Hatton?
Delegate.
Thank you. Councillor Ree? Thank you. If no one else would like to put their name down for delegate, then can I suggest that the highest vote out of the one who misses out on delegate go as the second deputy? Everyone happy with that process? I think, unless someone wants to put their hand up now who hasn't nominated yet. No. Okay. So what we will do is we'll hand out a voting slip now, councillors. Rather than get this all done in the back rooms and have to type all this up, if you just write the 4 preferred names, all you have to do, you don't have to write the whole lot out, just write the surname down. So we'll send something around. We'll send an actual voting slip around. Yep, so no hurry here. So make sure you, Councillor Ferrante.
I might as well go as deputy then, if that's okay.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Ferrante will go as deputy, so we'll change that. So let's have a look and see what we've got. So on your voting slip in front of you, you've got 4 vacancies for the position and you've got 5 delegates. You will put the 4 names, just a surname next to councillor that you wish to be a delegate. Next to deputies, you have those 2 and you'll just write the 2 names that are in front of you. So you can fill in the bottom by writing Criado and Ferrante. I'll make that easy for you. That's a practice. And then the top 4. If you do that, is there anyone who's not clear on the process? Let me know now. Thank you. And just to be clear as well, there's only 4 in the top. The order you put them in there does not affect, it's a number of votes that person gets. We're not doing optional preferential or anything. You effectively don't. You can write those 2 names down, but you don't. Thank you. I'll now go to the vote. Live stream, councillors, just to inform you, the live stream has now been turned on. The voting is back. So item 3 will read that the following members be appointed as delegates or deputies to the West Australian Local Government Association North Zone for the rest of this period, which is from now to the 21st of October. Those are delegates Councillor Farrelly, Councillor Hatton, Councillor Lagan and Deputy Mayor Proud, and as deputies, Councillor Criado and Councillors Ferrante. That is moved and seconded Councillor Migdale and seconded Councillor Lagan. I will put that to the vote, councillors. Thank you. That motion is carried. Councillor Ree voting against. I'm now going to item 13.2, the Alliance for Innovation Transforming Local Government Annual Conference, 17th, 20th April 95. A mover of the motion, please, councillors. Move Councillor Migdale. Is there a seconder for this motion? Seconded Councillor Criado. Sorry, is there anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that motion. Thank you, and that is unanimous. I'll go into item 14, notice of motions for consideration. Item 14.1, there is an alt rec for this one. It's Councillor Ree's notice of motion on Bennett Park. Councillor Ree, your motion.
Thanks. I just think it's a bit concerning too that not all the detail was put in here, which I did ask for, and the notice of motion I did ask for a long time ago. That the actual reasons that it was...
In fairness, it was Christmas break.
It was...
Yeah, this is the first
before
opportunity
Christmas.
they've had to come back though.
Excuse me, that was the original motion I put up was, if you remember, was about 6-7 months ago, about what was happening at Bennett Park. So...
I think that was a question on notice. Anyway, you've got a motion and it's your motion, so what is your motion?
Well, it concerns me that the recent replaced their damaged fence, which is a higher colour bond, and I appreciate the work's undertaken.
Councillor, I don't know what your motion is though, like...
Well,
so,
noting the information doesn't sit there, it doesn't have all the full information. The whole reason I asked for it is that they would get a report on why it took so long to do, what was happening, which is not in this report. So...
I think, honestly, Councillor, I read the report and I thought there was a fair bit of information in there. It had the timeline of the build. It said it was completed in July 21. It did say that it was waiting for outstanding items. Those items were requested after the initial scope, things like the hand railings, etc. And it was noted that it should have had an opening, and that's probably the key here. There was no opening to open the building. That hasn't occurred, but that is now happening. But have you got a motion you'd like to put up?
But I think that's my point. Why would we miss the handrails? Why
Because it wasn't part of the original scope.
But under a safety issue, why wasn't that picked up? Which is why I thought this would be in the report. So the only thing we can do is actually note what goes on, and hopefully that when we do a next report, that the handrails are actually in it.
So your motion is that we note it. Thank you. And there's a seconder for that motion. Deputy Mayor Proud. I'm guessing there's no one opposed to noting this information, and I'll put that to the vote. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 14.2, proposed notice of motion, artists in residence. Is there a mover of a motion? Councillor Sandri.
I do have an alternative recommendation.
Yes, it's your motion, so it can be whatever you like.
The governance, do you have it from...
This one?
yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that council list for consideration funding for the Inglewood Arts Hub in 2023-2024 annual budget process.
Thank you.
And do you want the reason?
Yes, please.
The proposed Arts Hub was first discussed with the City over 12 months ago. Inglewood on Beaufort is currently utilising a space within the Bob Daniels Community Centre on a temporary basis. However, the most suitable location for the Arts Hub is the former outside school hours care space. Building works are required to make the former outside hours school care space fit for purpose. When completed, the Arts Hub will add vibrancy and activation to Inglewood Town Centre in what will be a vacant building until we realise its commercial value. And thank you to Mick for that.
and I'm guessing Councillor Lagan will wish to second that. Is there anyone opposed? No, I'll put that one to the vote. Just one to go. I've got Councillor Corrado, just your vote.
Just a question.
Thank you. That is unanimous.
It's sort of not related. It's related
Is
to the
it?
order. It's not mentioned on the agenda.
Sorry.
It's not mentioned here, but you're withdrawing yours. It's through you, Mr. Mayor.
No, I think there's.
So that's what I mentioned earlier
It
on.
was mentioned. There's an email. Some of your run sheets were missing an item on the agenda. It is on some copies of the agenda. Yep. I'm quite happy. We're moving along. There's a motion put. It's carried. We're going to 14.3. Notice of motion. This one's Councillor Kristovich. Your motion.
Yeah, that a report be presented to Council to advise of the future planning and options for coastal hazard mitigation works at Waterman's Bay Beach and Meadows Pool.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Farrelly. Is there anyone opposed? I'll put that motion. That is slow. Councillors, we've got a couple of you. Hatton, Olo, I need a vote. Migdale, I need a vote. Councillor Olo, yep, done. Good, that is unanimous. Thank you. Item 14.4, proposed note of motion, Deputy Mayor, temporary parking. You've got an alt rec.
I have got an old rec. That the city progresses the previously endorsed council decision, Resolution 0719/015, dated 2nd of 7th, 2019, and immediately provide council with options, concepts and costings of providing car parking at Lot 0, house number 273, West Coast Highway, Scarborough. Reason, this item has already been endorsed by council 3.5 years ago, and the admin has not progressed this previously as requested. By holding it off for citywide plans does not deliver the outcomes that council and community have requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we proceed, can I just check, is it Lot 0? Yes. It is definitely Lot 0? Yep. Just doesn't make sense that it's Lot 0. Yep, it is a number, you're right. Just seems weird. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Farrelly. Thank you. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that motion to the vote. Thank you. That is unanimous. Item 14.5, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Ferrante. Oh, this will
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
This will be worth waiting for. Councillor Ferrante.
The best for last, as usual. All I'd like to slightly amend the date to allow officers some more time. Instead of late February, may I please change that to June? June, please. June.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governors.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Dudek has confidently seconded that. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Kristovich? Thank you. Councillor Ferrante, would you like to open debate?
Mr. Mayor, I reserve the right to close.
Thank you. Councillor Dudek, would you like to talk?
No. I'll reserve the right as well.
You don't get to reserve the right. This is your only chance, Councillor.
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kristovich.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask some questions about this as well, because in reading the response to this motion, I mean, I just can't see how our parking inspectors are going to know when someone's 90 minutes over and how it's all going to be managed. And the report says it's a complex thing to do. As much as I understand the context of it, and I agree that where people are, maybe 10 minutes over or something, but when you're talking about 90 minutes, I just don't understand how this is going to work and how this can be set up or managed. So that's the reason why I thought I'd vote against it, because I'd like to know from the officers, can this really be done? How can it be done? What would be involved? Is there some alternative way we can deal with people being 5 or 10 minutes late? I know sometimes people walk up to a parking inspector and say, look, I just walked away, I'm 10 minutes over, sorry about that. If they show discretion in that situation, I don't know. Do we encourage them to show discretion where people do that sort of thing? So I understand the rationale, but I just don't understand how we can logically implement this. So maybe if the director can explain to me how this would work and whether or not we can do it.
I will get the directors to provide a little bit of comment, or perhaps I'll even go to Mr Mullins if that's preferred. But I'll also will just note that it would be unfair to ask for all that information that Councillor Ferrante has just asked for in 3 or 4, 5 months' time in 2 minutes, because that's basically what the report asked for.
I know,
for a report
but
to
I
come
just thought
back.
I'd
But I get your point. Shall we go straight to Mr Mullins?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, it is complex. There's a bit to think about. As far as your comment around the discretion, that is certainly something that the officers do. So we do afford about a 10-15 minute sort of grace period for people that might have an expired ticket. Typically speaking, you know, this is public paid parking areas. If we see an expired ticket on a windscreen, discretion is normally afforded. We don't typically write a lot of infringement notices for that. I did do a bit of a look at stats, and in the current financial year, there's been 47 infringement notices issued for expired tickets, so it's not a great number. The complexity side of this is we would need to check some legislation around it, the technology aspect of it. We wouldn't want to create extra burden on officers to do this work. And, you know, we have a combination of parking ticket machines and the Easy Park app we use as a technology. So there's some certain things that we need to look at, hence the advice that it's complex and we need some more time to look into it.
Councillor Migdale?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I 100% agree and support this notice of motion, and I think it's time that we all be very mindful this year, especially with the economy being the way it is, that handing out speeding tickets left, right and centre is going to greatly affect businesses that are already being greatly affected. Absolutely. I received a parking ticket in a particular city, not Stirling, to be clear, recently, during the holidays, and I haven't been back there. I have not been back there to businesses I normally would go and spend money at. It turned me off completely. I've seen parking inspectors now in other cities wearing their cameras and walking down the street at haste to, it's almost like a game where they're trying to ping as many people as possible. You know, I get behind our small businesses, all businesses in our city, and I hope for their success. And I do not want to see parking fines as being their undoing. So I will support this. This is for a report to come back. Let's have a look at it and see what we can do.
Thank you. Councillor Sandri?
Thank you. I just have a question. So in the report that will come back, are we simply looking at 90 minutes or are we looking at like a range and what that effect would be?
I would envisage the officers will look at a range of things of what is doable and what times would be.
Okay. And I just worked out, if there's been 47 fines this financial year to date, that will equate to about 80.5 fines by the end of financial year, which equates to 0.03% of our overall population, which is not very many, just putting it out.
Which probably highlights the fact that Councillor Ferrante was one of a very few people in the city who got fined. Is that Councillor Farrelly?
Through you, Mr Mayor. I just have a question exactly to the officer. Where are we getting those parking fines? Where's the area? Because, you know, are we actually having officers run up like along to the beaches and say, well, it's now 11:30 and those cars are all there, and then do they come back in 2 hours or something and say, all right, they're all, you know, they should
So I
be...
can give you a quick answer on that and say that the actual statistics can be presented, like given to council as part of this report. They can certainly provide you that information rather than doing it. They wouldn't have it all now. So right now it's across the city, but the council has also been very clear, and the officers understand that this city doesn't go around and fine people generally for overstaying stays by 10 minutes or anything. Most of the fines that you would see in the city of Stirling would be parking on footpaths, parking in disabled bays, blocking thoroughfares. So it's a warning first approach at any time with most of those applications. But that information can certainly be presented. Okay, what now? Mr Mullins?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Farrelly. Yes, so expired ticket, that's only our public paid parking areas. So Scarborough is not included in that. We don't have public paid parking down there. So it's areas like Hazard Road in the commercial area. We have a section in Glendalough, those areas. So it's expired ticket, so it must be a public paid parking area. The other question, a bit about time limit restriction. So again, this financial year currently, there's been 545 infringements issued for exceeding a time limit restriction. So that is the citywide statistic, if that helps.
And you can get the break. We can get the breakdown as part of this report.
I mean, that's very clear that the way the City of Stirling parking inspectors are going is that they are providing, infringements rather than fines. That, the severity or the magnitude, if you had 1 for 1 or something, the concern would be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this? If not, Councillor Ferrante, would you like to close?
Mr Mayor, it gravely disappoints me to hear that I don't have the support of certain people, which means that they're not supporting the people that have been fined in the past, regardless of the small percentage that someone, a councillor, and we won't name that person, said that it's 0.1%, unless you're the person that's been, whatever. Unless you're the person that's been fined. And where we need to be the city of choice is that we need to be good citizens. Recently, the Bell Times, there was a remark about a certain ranger. We won't have the profanity attached in regards to where a ticket was issued in another council. That's not what I'd like to see the City of Stirling for, and the opportunity for us as a council to look at this and be good supporters of the public. Further to the discussion around how will we time it by one of the other councillors in another ward, they have asked how we're going to measure it, Mr Mayor. Well, where we're going to measure it is through the Easy app. So Easy Park app should be able to determine some of that. And as your... More money. So I'll leave it up to discretion of fellow councillors and how they support it. Just remember, I was in support and so was Councillor Dudek and Migdal. Thank you.
As we go to the vote, I do have to just query, did I hear right? Did you quote the Bell Tower Times as part of your close?
It's me, I did, and it makes very good fact.
I just need to clarify that. Thanks. I will put that to the vote. Move Councillor Ferrante, seconded Councillor Dudek. Thank you. And that motion is carried with 3 very sensible councillors, being Councillor Farrelly, Sandri and myself, voting against. That is carried. We'll now go... It is coming back. Item 4, councillors, item 15 now, notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting. Councillors, do you have any proposed notice of motions at the next meeting? I'll start around here. Councillor Reid. Thank you. If you just read your nom. I'll go around the table, councillors. So.
A report be presented to the Planning and Development Committee meeting to be held on the 8th of August 2023 regarding the option to amend the standard community and sporting club leases and licences to include the servicing and repair of drinking fountains as part of the city's annual maintenance program. This report would follow an elected members' workshop on leases and licences in July.
Thank you. Councillor Perkov.
I got one. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. This is a notice of motion for the hub of all squeeze sports, which is Hammersley. That a report be presented to Council by July 2023 on future improvements to Rickman Delaunay Reserve North specifically, including removal of the east-west path connection and installation of connecting pathways to surrounding streets to create a loop circuit around the reserve and increased opportunity for organised sport use. And the reason is up there with the ever-decreasing playing sports.
That's fine, Councillor. It's clear. It's clear.
We need something like this badly, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Not sure. Have the officers got it? Yeah, they do. So the Mayor writes the relevant authorities seeking the immediate removal of the redundant telecommunications tower at Inglewood United. Can we just add in their lease area? At the intersection of 9th Avenue and Homer Parade, Inglewood, as per development grant, approval grant circa 2019. It might have been before that. We can check the dates by the West Australian Planning Commission. The reason was a new telecommunications tower has been put in place.
Yep.
And I think on the original application, the removal of the old one was
Part of the development approval. I note you'll always include me, though. I don't know why I have to write. But Councillor Sundry.
I have a prop for this one.
Oh.
So that a review be commenced and reported back to council in April 2023 on the city's playground policy, which was last reviewed in May 2020. As per the policy, it was required to be reviewed in 2021. The reason is that multiple requests through councillors are not being progressed due to the interpretation and the contents of this policy. These matters relate to fencing around playgrounds, the type of play equipment, shade structures and the hierarchy of playgrounds. I'll also note, if I can briefly, this policy is administered by Recreation and Leisure Services but is enforced by our parks area, so there needs to be some consideration around that as well.
Thank you. Good motion. As we go around, I'll get to Councillor Migdale.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And governance don't have a copy of this, so I'm
Well,
just
it's one of
raising it
these
from the
ones
floor.
made up on
That
the
the City of Stirling marked the date of the coronation of King Charles III on May the 6th, 2023 by holding a high tea at the City and by renaming a room in the City in honour of Her Royal Highness Queen Elizabeth II.
Oh. Quite like that one. As we go around, Councillor Farrelly, you've got a motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's up there. Yeah,
If you're watching at home and you're from Scarborough, this is your time.
yes,
Yes.
yes, wherever you are. That retrospective public consultation on the closure of the Brighton Beach access path is carried out and subsequent report be presented to March 2023 to Council in response to public concern about the recent closure, that the report to contain the results of the public consultation, the rationale for closing the path, and importantly, options to keep the path open.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other motions as we go around? It looks like that is it. Thank you, councillors, for those. 16 questions by members of which due notice is given. There's questions from Councillor Elizabeth Ree at item 15, I think at 16.1.
Can I make a comment, please? It says my question was, with regard to these, what is the process and policy? In A3, there was no policy or process provided, and as they are different, it's a generic comment, and that didn't tell me anything, and it should be aligned with it. And if the policies are there, even if they should be on the website, if they can be linked to the website.
If you can, so I think that in general, when I read these, they were very general answers, but in fairness, the questions were extremely general as well. If you've got a specific question relating to a specific award or any process, it would allow the city to then answer that, because we're involved in so many different processes for nominating, and every one of them generally is aligned possibly to a third-party organisation even, where we don't have any control over those processes. So if you can provide that information, you'll certainly have more specific answers. Item 17, new business of an urgent nature, there is nil. 18 matters behind closed doors, we have nil. That brings us to 19, which is closure. Thank you, councillors. It's been lovely to have you back. I declare the meeting now closed at 8:20 p.m.